In this lesson, we're going to talk about what are called constraints. And constraints are just a way for you to apply certain settings that control how a given object will respond when elements are resized or even frames are resized or positioned. So here's an example. You don't necessarily have to download this file and follow along if you don't want to, because you're going to have practice with this going forward. But you can if you wish. I've made this file available for you. So what we could see here is we have this little photograph. It's simply in a rectangle, as we could see. And if we look up here, we have this top constraints section. You could see there are these little this blue ticks on the right, top, bottom, left are ticked on. And we also have two drop downs right here. So let's just change this to left and top right here. Now, conversely, you can click on these icons to also change these settings. And when we do this, you can see, given that it's on top left, we can see these little blue lines here. So what this means is if we take this frame and we move it over from the right to the left, nothing happens. However, if we adjust it this way, it stays constrained to the top and to the left. Also, if we move it down, because it's constrained to the top, it's going to stay up there. And then also, because we move the bottom, it doesn't get affected. Of course, if we change it to the bottom, then you'll see if we move it from the top, it gets cut off. And then right here, it maintains its size. So this is a way for us to apply certain rules when it concerns resizing elements. All right, and so we can also adjust a few other things. For instance, if you want to have something to be affected by the left and the right, we could put center right here, and we could also do center right here. And you'll see it's kind of hard to see here in this picture, but there's a dotted, kind of like a crosshair in the middle. So now if we move it here, it gets affected, but it also gets affected here as well. All right. So additionally, there's some two other options, and we have left and right being one of them. So if left and right is selected, watch what happens. And we'll move this over. So essentially what happens, and this is from the official Figma docs, is it maintains the object size and position relative to both sides of the frame. So this may cause objects to grow or shrink, as we just saw here, along the x-axis. And we have the same exact option here for top and bottom. And then we also have scale, and scale works very similarly. Let's change scale on the x and y axis. As you see, if we move this in, it's not quite as affected as it appears. And simply put, this will define the object size and position as a percentage of the frame's dimensions. So the difference between left and right in scale is left and right will maintain the object size and position relative to both sides of the frame. And this one will define the object size and position as a percentage of the frame's dimensions. Very kind of confusing. The best way I can tell you to understand how to use it is it all depends on your use case. So give it context and you'll see how these work eventually based on your needs. So also, this all works as well. It's not just by adjusting frames, but it also works like in groups and embedded frames as well inside of a frame. So for instance, let's go ahead and get some type here. I'm going to put awesome shoes. We'll make that a little bit larger. We're not trying to design anything too fancy. And if I go ahead and create a component by right clicking, all right, we could see now if we select this, we have constraints that are still available here to us. And of course, if we double click into this, we also have our constraints here within this element. So let's try to drag this out and see what happens. So notice how it scales out automatically. So if we double click into this image, you'll see it's set by scale by default. But we can also change it to perhaps right. So now if we change our component, it stays to the right. So all of this stuff is very handy, and you'll see it'll be very useful when we go to create our components and try to work with them in a responsive nature.